Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. This is your DC All-In Spotlight. We're going to be talking in depth about the DC All-In special. It's been hyped for a lot of months. It's been coming. It's finally here, October 2nd. Be sure, everybody, to go and check out our regular DC Spotlight over on Rocky's channel on YouTube. Comic Space Boom exclamation point is where you can find that. It has all the other DC books. If you don't regularly listen to our DC Spotlight over there, be aware that we used to always do every single book and do a deep dive into every single DC book. We have slightly changed that, starting with this DC All-In. We're going to each do our top 5 books. We'll mention all the other books and give just a real quick thought about each one. So we'll still be covering everything, but we're only going to deep dive on each of our own top 5s, and there may be overlap there. So definitely go and check it out. Subscribe, leave some comments. We love to get conversations going in the comment section there. And Rocky's got a ton of other great content as well besides the DC Spotlight. So be sure you're doing that. But if you're joining us on the Comic Source YouTube, we really appreciate it. Also be aware that all the Comic Source content also comes out on our podcast feed, audio only. If that's your thing, you listen to it while you're driving or whatever. Just go to whatever your favorite podcasting platform or app is, do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. So all that being said, yeah, this has been a long time coming. DC's been promoting it for a long time. It certainly was the focus at DC Comic Con this year. And I gotta say, a lot of times when things are hyped up, with few exceptions, they don't always live up to the hype. I mean, go back and look at something like New 52, started out great, kind of fell off. The DCU was the next publishing initiative I can think of. That never really hit. Rebirth, again, started out great, but then, and part of it was Jeff Johns just being involved with other stuff and some of the big connectivity tissues that we were supposed to see, like in Doomsday Clock, just took forever. So again, it kind of fizzled. And since then, I mean, the metal stuff, Dark Crisis, Infinite Frontier, all these other the New Justice, none of them have really lived up to the hype. But I would say, I think this has been the thing that's been most promoted since the New 52. And it seems to have the most buzz since the New 52 and seems to have people excited since the New 52. What are your thoughts on that, Rocky?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you and I, we're going to be getting into deep dive here to the DC All-In, but the last, I mean, the last 2 or 3 crises that the DC has had have been underwhelming. Dark Crisis was disappointing. The spirit of the DCU it's been a little bit, they haven't been firing on all cylinders, and dare I say, I'm much more excited about this. This is just playing a better story. It's a better foundation, as we'll discuss. At least that's certainly my spoiler alert opinion. And I think this is a really great time. I mean, I know we've heard that before. But no, this is better. This is a much better foundation for DC moving forward. It makes more sense as we'll get into it. And it even respects a lot of the continuity, and God forbid does something that I think is almost impossible. It actually simplifies it a little bit, dare I say, and just, dumbs it down to some really good, interesting, easy to understand core concepts between good and bad. And that's what you need for superhero comics.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I will say, everybody, earlier this week, we also put out another YouTube video that was kind of like 10 things we think you need to know before you read All-In. So if you haven't checked that out, you might want to go and check that out and hear what we had to say. A lot of it comes just from our knowledge of DC. Some of it comes from things that Scott Snyder and Joshua Williamson and Daniel Sampere and Wes Craig said in the interviews I had with them last week, which are up on the LRM website. They're just articles. I wasn't allowed to record audio or video or what have you, but there's a lot of information there. I know they're long, but there's a lot to parse out. If you don't take the time to read it, just go watch our video on 10 things you should know before reading DC All-In. And like Rocky said, we're going to get spoilery here, right? We're going to go page by page because this is such an important story. And I will echo what Rocky said. It's been an up and down DC universe for a while, with, things that happen in metal and death metal. That's really, I think, where this starts, like with the things that, maybe what should I read before? Like starting with metal, death metal, Scott Snyder's Justice League run, Dark Crisis, Infinite Frontier. Those are the books that inform this. So give credit to Williamson and Snyder for going back and not necessarily making it so hey, you better have read those, but building off of what some of those previous stories have been. Not that those stories have always landed really, really well, but reading this all in special, man, it was so good. It was so good. And not only just because it has made it where some of those other things that maybe didn't land as well as we hoped or weren't as exciting as we hoped, making them a little more relevant and allowing them to bring context to this story, but new ideas in this story that make a lot of sense and are like, oh, holy shit, that makes a lot of sense. I understand why it's happening. And it's advancing DC, and it's doing what Scott Snyder has often said. One of the things I wanted to accomplish with All In was to do two things, right? We mentioned two of the most successful, when I kind of went through the most recent events, the two most successful recent events that DC has done. Man, we go all the way back to 2011 with New 52, and then Rebirth, the other one that I mentioned. And Scott saying, okay, the problem with New 52, everything was new and fresh, but it threw out a lot of DC's history and legacy, which is what a lot of old school DC fans like. It's what makes DC special and makes it stand out. And they threw the baby out with the bathwater, and they admitted that. And that's what Rebirth was, right? It was a return to legacy. So what they're trying to do here, and this is what Snyder has said in many interviews, is they're trying to have both, right? With the main universe line, all the legacy is still there, but with the Absolute Universe line, it's something new, something fresh, like with the New 52. So that being said, let me go ahead and share my comic here. Now, it's covering us up a little bit. Don't worry, I'll shrink it down once we get past the covers. But I want to show you guys all these covers. And again, this is going to be spoilery. We're going to show every page. But hey, you got to go out and buy this because you're not going to be able to see the script. It's all I whited it all out. You're not going to be able to see the language. And this is something you're going to want for yourself, because the other thing is I'm showing you a digital copy that we received ahead of time so we could review it. This is a book, because it's a flip book, that you're going to want to read physically and actually be able to turn the book, because I had to like manipulate these files. Took me hours, whatever, to get them. And you'll see what I mean as we go through. But anyway, first cover here, Daniel Sampere, absolutely fantastic. And you can see how it is a flip book. You literally flip it around because half the cover's upside down here. Then we have this one where it's kind of sideways. Darkseid fighting the Justice League. We knew this was coming. We know Darkseid loses because we've seen the solicits. Darkseid dies. Wait, what? Again, hang with us here. It's much as we suspected, as Rocky and I said. Is he really dead? Is he not dead? Is it something else? Yeah, it turns out it's something else. Here's the Wes Craig cover again, upside down, half of it. And then we get into this John Zhang cover, which is really fantastic. I think this one might even be a foil version. So anyway, anything to add about any of the covers, Rocky, before we go to the interior?
They're just really well done. They're really, really well done. And I love the fact that cover A is my favorite, because it's a flip book and it's beautifully designed, and that Omega symbol is just so perfectly designed, and it works so well with the concept of the flip, and the symbol, of course, for the Omega symbol, a play on it because it's the symbol of Darkseid in the anti-life equation. This was really, really well done, even with the trade dress of the state of the DC All In, with the old / new DC logo, the bullet. Yeah, it's high compliments on the covers, which I often complain about cover A, B's, and C's, but no, I love them all. They're all great.
Yeah, they really are. This one here, I can't remember who did. Rafa Sandoval, I believe, did this one. It's fantastic. This one's Wes Craig, and as I said, this one John Zhang. So let me just real quickly adjust this down so you can see all of our artwork in the background here. So just bear with me, everybody. So as you can see, this says that it starts, and I started, let me ask you, Rocky, I started and I read the alpha side or the Superman side first. Technically you can do either. But I mean, Superman, he's my favorite character. I decided to read this side first. But you can start from the Omega side, the Darkseid side, if you will. But I'm curious, which side did you start with?
Well, it was funny because I saw the a preview copy that you had shared with me, and I had heard that it was a flip book, so I did actually start with the dark side, or I guess the Omega side, Alpha and Omega, the Omega side. So I did start with the dark side because I thought it would be interesting, and I'm kind of glad I did, because it was more interesting, because frankly I was more curious as to what was up with Darkseid, because I love Darkseid. I like so many people, I have bitched, whined, and complained that Darkseid should be Thanos level, but he's always been given short thrift. Dark Crisis made him look like an embarrassment, quite frankly. And so no, I started with Darkseid because I wanted to start with that, and I'm glad I did. But really, let's be blunt, it doesn't matter what side you start with, because it ends in the middle, and the big reveal, as we'll show, is it's quite something.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely comes together, and you're going to see parallels. And again, go read my article. Joshua Williamson talks a lot about the building it, how he had a whiteboard, and if they changed something on one side, they had to change something on the other. And I think it is a different experience. So you got a choice. If you haven't read it yet, you got a choice. Obviously, if you don't want it to be spoiled, go and read it. Pause this, go and read it. But you can choose. You can choose to read the Darkseid side first. You can choose to read the Superman side first. Like I said, I read the Superman side first. In the digital file, it was what came first. But we know I guess we'll say the significance of the number 52 in the DCU. So it starts off and it says 52 days after. So this is 52 days after Absolute Power, which is another something you probably should read before you dive into this. It explains some of the stuff that we're going to see here. And the same day that All In Special comes out, Absolute Power 4 comes out. Definitely read Absolute Power 4 before you read this All In Special. So the book starts off, and we see that they're creating these Justice League membership cards, basically. And these are the same cards that retailers are going to be able to give away. There's 4 different cards. One has Superman, one has Batman, one has Wonder Woman, and actually there's 5, I guess. One has Darkseid, that's kind of a corrupted one, and then there's a blank one. And it's fantastic, and it's really cool that you're going to be able to get this for yourself. But again, Williamson talked about this. We see Batman basically doing the science part of it, Superman doing the cosmic part of it, and then Wonder Woman doing the magic part of it. And again, they talk about this in the interview. But really cool to start off. And what I love about this page, the focus is on the card, right? Like, you don't actually see the faces, the heads, or what have you, of any of the heroes. You know who it is based on the costumes. You see the others that are there. I mean, Batman, and I think the white hands on the left are Mr. Terrific, and then I want to say that I'm not sure who those green hands, like, could that be Green Arrow? I mean, he's Oliver Queen. He's got some technology, but I'm not 100% sure who that is. Yeah. But obviously, the white.
That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I think it's Mr. Terrific, because you can see those T spheres there.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the cosmic, you see Hawkgirl, you see Flash, you see, I think that's John Stewart. See Green Lantern one way or the other. But I think it's John Stewart, especially based on his architecture and engineering background and the little Green Lantern constructs that are there. And then Zatanna and Wonder Woman. And I think that's Swamp Thing's hand that's holding Zatanna's hand. But over there in the back, that's holding Wonder Woman's hand with the sleeve. That looks like Felix Faust to me. There's no way it can be Felix Faust. Do you have any idea who it is?
No, I don't. I have no idea who that is.
Yeah.
No,
So
I don't know.
Not super important. We know it's a magic user. I'm just not sure who. Who it is. So anyway, they're making the card, and I apologize, everybody. I didn't put the double page spreads together, but up next we have a double page spread. Superman is flying, and he's talking about, and again, this will tie in. This will make sense if you read Absolute Power. He's talking about the fact that what happened to Absolute Power sort of happened because the Justice League wasn't around. And it's really interesting. And when we review Absolute Power, we'll talk about that over on Rocky's channel in DC Spotlight on Tuesday or Wednesday. But basically, with this idea of, hey, let's make sure that doesn't happen again. Let's make sure we're communicating. It's an idea that everybody is a member. And it's what Mark Waid has said. He talked about it at San Diego Comic-Con. Everybody is a member of Justice League Unlimited. And so in these 2 pages, we see Superman. He's flying around, and he's going and he's inviting everybody. We see him talk. Well, the middle part here is we see some of the consequences lately, right? Like, we see the death of the Justice League and how the Titans had to step in. The green panel there is Lazarus Planet. Then we see Dark Crisis, um, uh, and Night Terrors right there is the one with the lightning and Dead Man who played a big part. Then we see Beast World, where Beast Boy became a Starro basically. And then we see Absolute Power with the Brainiac Queen, and then Absolute Power also on the last one with the Amazo robots. So that's basically the context of Superman saying, yeah, because we weren't together, this is all the bad stuff that happened. And then in the bottom, you see that he's going through and recruiting all these people. Like I said, we see Starfire, we see Blue Beetle, we see Arsenal, we see Robot Man. What he has to say is kind of interesting and fun. We see Metamorpho, we see Supergirl, we see Damian Wayne, we see Fire and Ice. So for a lot of these heroes, this is sort of it, right? It's what you've always strived for, to be part of the in group, which is so interesting to be invited to be a member of the Justice League, I think, because it's like they can't stop you from being a hero, but then to be invited, I mean, it doesn't exist in our reality, but there are things that are, I think, comparable. The one that immediately comes to mind that has kind of prestige, and if you're one of these, you want to be a member of it. It's being a magician and being invited to be a member of the Magic Castle in LA. Like it just has like, history going back to earliest magicians and illusionists, Harry Houdini, whatever. And if you're a magician, there's nothing to stop you from going out and performing and doing magic for people and making a big career or whatever. But you kind of, in a way, this is what I've heard. I don't know any magicians personally, but you don't feel like you've made it until you get that invite. And I think it's the same here. So really interesting and fun. And the fact that they get this card, which is more than just a membership card, more than just a Justice League communicator. It has apocalyptic boom tube tech to teleport to the Watchtower. It's just a really, really cool item. So any thoughts about this double page spread here, Rocky?
Yeah, what I like about it is, and I'll just say that I don't think anybody needs to read Absolute Power at all. I want to be clear on that. I don't think you need it. All you need to know is that the Justice League are forming an unlimited, and they're opening up their membership to everybody. And the reason why is because they've had a bunch of they've had a lot of very disturbing and epic events lately that have forced them to make this tough decision. That's all you really need to know. I don't think that's one of the things I liked about this, is that you can go into this cold, and you don't really need to read Absolute Power 4. This is new reader friendly, I think. And you said it you get excited because everybody is being invited to join the Justice League, and especially if you've not read a comic in a while, if you've been one of those people that's been away from DC for a while and you're coming back, you think Justice League Unlimited. Well, you're probably thinking of the cartoon. You probably watched the cartoon. You've probably heard that phrase. If you've heard that phrase, it's been because of that cartoon, and so it's got a lot of goodwill associated with it, and you got this beautiful double page spread with Superman, and it does look amazing as that double page spread. His arms are spread, he's flying, and he's giving these invitations out. Everyone's smiling and giving it careful consideration because it's a big deal. And as a longtime fan, man, this just puts just a huge grin on my face. And I got to tell you, for Absolute Power being, for those of us who have read Absolute Power, I like the fact that not a lot of it is mentioned here, really, and this is a much happier, open setting on this side of the flip book before it sort of drops the darkness on the other side, which is kind of cool. So yeah, this double-edged spread is so perfect because it encapsulates the new hope before you sort of see the new darkness.
Yeah, and if you go read my article, it's actually split into two, everybody. The one that has Daniel Sampere, he talks a lot about his process with drawing Superman and how it's so different from the Darkseid side that Wes Craig draws. One quick comment about, hey, do I need Absolute Power or not? Rocky's right. You don't really need to read Absolute Power to get everything. This is very new reader friendly. He's right. But what you really should do is definitely go check out our Spotlight. This week comes out the same day as this episode, because we're going to talk about Absolute Power 4. And I think you will, you'll get a little more out of this if you know how Absolute Power 4 ended. Yeah. So if you don't want to read it, sure, no problem. Just go listen to our review of it, and we'll tell you everything you need to know. All right. Up next, we have the Booster Gold page here, Booster Gold's going to play a big role in the story, as you'll see, and a big role going forward, sort of. And again, we'll talk about that. But what's interesting is Superman had said some of the people we really had to reach out to in person. We had to hand deliver. So what are your thoughts on this Booster Gold page, Rocky?
Well, Booster Gold is one of those characters that has been, in many ways, he's been written as kind of a joke character, almost like a parody. With great respect to Dan Jurgens, when he writes, he loves the character, but frankly, the last Booster Gold Blue Beetle team up, it was kind of a joke. They wanted to join the Justice League, and of course they couldn't, and so they went off and did their own thing. They've always wanted to join the Justice League. Booster Gold's always wanted to be a member, but he's always been portrayed as really almost so much of an over-the-top narcissist and a sort of a bumbling time traveler. And what I like about this here is that he finally gets a little bit of respect. And because always behind the scenes, we always knew that Batman in the Justice League, at least when on the stories that were good, he was shown more respect. And he's not a complete bumbling idiot. He does know a lot. He's got a lot of experience, and he's earned it. And I like the respect that this story gives Booster Gold. And he has absolutely earned the invitation that Superman makes to him. And I love the fact that this scene opens up with Booster Gold doing something heroic and succeeding at it, not being a bumbling moron. He's saving lives, and of course he's taking selfies with the kids he saves. So he's still himself. He's still a little bit of a jokester, but he at the same time he's a hero at heart, and I really love that. And because I think it heightens the character and it emphasizes his heroism while also keeping his core character in play right on the opening page when you see him. So I quite like this opening page leading into the invitation that follows.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. If you're not familiar with Booster Gold, he basically is from the future. He was a football star. He gambled on himself. Games he played in, got found out. He was disgraced. The only job he could get was as a security guard in a museum. You'll see that in a second. He stole a bunch of tech and went back in time to become a hero. So not the best origin. And when he came back, he seemed to just care about money and publicity and what have you. It's so interesting that he was created in the 80s. Never more so relevant an origin like that than now with influencers and social media and what have you, which is the direction they've sort of taken him. He hasn't really evolved. And it's interesting because, as Rocky said, he does something heroic here. He rescues these kids, and they're like, oh, do we need to tip you? Do we need to like, subscribe, whatever? And it's a more mature Booster. He's like, nah, I kind of don't care about any of that anymore. I'm over the shameless plug. He even tells Skeets, his little robot companion, he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And Skeets is like, well, at least a selfie. So it's actually not even Booster's idea to do the selfie. But as he flies off, he says, Skeets, I've been thinking for a long time now. And Skeets is like, well, that's a dangerous proposition. And before we can find out what he's thinking about, Superman shows up and he extends the invitation. It's like Rocky said, showing some respect. I really think from a meta point of view, from a DC editorial point of view, it does feel like they're finally evolving Booster Gold to not be so narcissistic and just have him be a punchline and a joke. And Superman has always been Booster's favorite hero and the person he looks up to the most. So for Superman to extend this invitation really means a lot. And one thing of note is on this page here, when Superman gives him the card, he goes, "This is it." He's holding the card. It has his picture on it. And Superman's like, what do you mean? And then we get a little bit backstory of Booster. He says, yeah, I worked in the museum, as you know, and I borrowed all the tech. I was inspired to come back and be a hero. But I got to be honest, lately I've felt a little lost. Like there's something off. I don't belong. I've been thinking about going home. And what he means by going is going back to the future. And again, I think this actually informs why he's sort of given up on he realizes, it seems to me, and this is the evolution, and Snyder and Williamson have done a good job, is it seems to me Booster's finally matured to the point that he recognizes sort of the pointlessness or the hollowness of fame and monetary wealth and likes and whatever. And he rescued those kids, and he did it because it's the right thing to do. So it is a maturation, I think, of Booster. And so when he gets this and he says, this is it, and Superman asks him, what do you mean? He's like, well, when I was in the museum as a security guard, they had one of these Justice League membership cards. It was blank, but I I feel like maybe, now I shouldn't go back. I had been part of the Justice League before, and he's referencing the Justice League International way back in the day, classic J.M. DeMatteis, Keith Giffen, Kevin Maguire era. But he feels like, okay, this is where I should be. This is where I am. And the fact that Superman took the time to bring him the card personally, I think means a lot to Booster. So anything more to add to that before we move on, Rocky?
Oh, just that it was just perfect. It was a perfect time to show in an event like this a much needed evolution of a popular character, Booster Gold. And just when thank God he's stepping up to the plate. He's clearly more mature. He's a little bit more self-aware of the pointlessness of fame. He's evolved as a character. He's evolved as a hero at just the right time, because his heroism is likely going to be needed.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I think, not that it's not fun to have him be kind of the punchline. And, we had that Blue and Gold series, had a lot of humor with Booster and Ted Kord, and everybody loves their interactions and what have you. But, man, like I think about the Batman story that Tom King did with Booster. That was a much more serious story. And I really enjoyed the more serious Booster that was in that story. So that looks like that may be what we're getting here. So, I left the ads in, everybody, because I think they're cool. This is for obviously the new arc that's coming out for Superman when Lois has powers. And I was trying to remember the other day, well, wait, what are the two? I know Dan Moore is drawing 2 titles a month, which is insane. Yeah, one of them is Superman and the other is Justice League Unlimited with tons of characters. We'll see how long Dan's able to keep up with that. And then also Chip Zdarsky, Jorge Jimenez, Batman's going to continue with a new arc as well that starts same day this comes out, October 2nd. So look for that. And then up next, we have a bunch of Green Lanterns and a bunch of other sort of cosmic characters all showing up to the Watchtower. We see Shazam there. We see Firestorm. We see all the Lanterns, Simon Baz, Jessica Cruz, John Stewart, Hal Jordan, Guy Gardner, Starfire. And then we see some others that are coming with that boom technology that's in the membership cards. We've got Tim Drake Robin. We've got Arsenal. We've got Nightwing, Fire and Ice. It looks like Obsidian coming down the stairs, Yara Flor, Power Girls flying in. Can't really tell who those others are. It's kind of too small. But there's some talk here about how it's going to be a full house. That's what Superman told Booster Gold. There's Boom Toom Tech to get there. They've built this place with the best hands possible, and that's where you see Blue Beetle, Ted Kord, doing some work on the outside in his spacesuit, and Oracle has set up their communication. So I'm wondering, I think Oracle maybe going forward, she might sort of split time between the bell tower in Gotham and this Watchtower, which is kind of cool. Yeah. She should do that, right?
She should. And, quite frankly, our brains are going to hurt if we're going to try to imagine all these superheroes having personal lives and also do all the stuff that they're likely going to be required to do if they're members of the Justice League. But you know what? The fanboy in me, I love the fact that, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care if they don't get any sleep. I love the fact that I have no problem with Oracle and all the other heroes working 8 hours a day in the satellite, then 8 hours a day in their respective home cities. This is the type of fun that I want to see in this new DC universe, this DC all in. And I love the concept of the satellite here. Daniel Sampere, just fantastic job on the satellite itself. It looks amazing, and it almost reminds me. I'm in my mind, I'm comparing. Is that kind of what the Totality satellite looked like at the end of Death Metal, or maybe a similar design, which I think intentional, because just flowing from that. So I think there's some artistic synchronicity here between this and maybe at the end how Death Metal ended, which we never really built on because of all the editorial shenanigans and the corporate takeover and stuff that happened at DC. So not only is this visually a Justice League satellite that I love to see, but even breaking the fourth wall, I kind of like the fact that it's sort of a return to the pre-messy DC, before things went awry and the 5G nonsense, and it just feels like I'm home again. This feels more familiar to me. It almost, I'll be blunt, I'm more excited. I'm I'm more excited about this, reading this, than I was DC Rebirth. If I'm being very blunt, but I
Yeah,
might be wrong, but
yeah,
I'm
no,
being blunt.
I mean,
Like,
DC Rebirth was great because it returned the legacy, but the new
yeah,
ideas, and I think part of it is what you had said earlier about you feel the same way about Darkseid that feel like you mentioned making him a Thanos level villain. When I talked to Scott Snyder, he used the term Galactus, and to me, yeah, it's even
sure,
Galactus.
yeah,
He's even more powerful than Thanos. That's the level
yeah,
Darkseid should be at, and we're going to get into it. Don't worry, everybody. Yeah, the other half of the double page spread, you do see, as Rocky said, the kind of the fullness of the Watchtower there. It's so much bigger than the old Watchtower. It puts the old satellite to shame in a lot of ways. It's really fantastic. I'll point out, we see Renee Montoya question there. We know she's going to be the head of security. So everybody files in. Again, it's a double page spread. It's fantastic, and I didn't put it together, but Daniel Semper talked about the first panel, big double page spread he did in Dark Crisis after Justice League's dead, and coming full circle, and he did this, and he put it up on his Twitter. How it started, how it's going is really interesting. So yeah, a who's who of characters there. You can see all of them, and I love that Mr. Terrific is up there with kind of because he should be elevated as well. I feel like he's such a smart guy, supposedly the smartest man in the DCU. You can argue Batman, Lex Luthor, Mr. Terrific. I think they're all up there. But he talks about those cards. Like I said, he said, so this headquarters is more, there's the headquarters. It's our home. Talks about the communications and it's basically them working together. So something like what Amanda Waller did in Absolute Power can never happen again. They're better together. He mentions the card and how it's more than just access to the Watchtower. The cards they're personalized to each person, and they will in some way augment people's powers. But also he mentions it's going to pair you up with people. So that goes into the thing that Mark Waid talked about. Who's a member of Justice League Unlimited? Well, it's going to be mission specific, right? And the cards are going to be a part of that. Like if there's a particular threat and your power set is suited to go against that threat, then the card is going to be like, okay, let's bring Firestorm and Booster Gold and Wally West and Aquaman and Fire and Ice together because they're the best combination to fight this particular threat. That's really, really cool.
I gotta say, I'm so curious because when Mr. Terrific states that the cards actually augment their abilities, I mean, look, I can understand a card being a glorified iPhone, and if there's a mission and it'll pair you with another hero that has necessary powers to, put out a fire somewhere or something. I get it, or take on some bank robbers. But how does a card augment one's abilities that they already have? That's absolutely new as far as I'm aware. That's absolutely a new thing for a Justice League membership card. I've never seen that before. And by the way, I still have, and I'm going to show it at some point, not on maybe a future podcast or video or whatever. I still have my Justice League. When Grant Morrison wrote Justice League, I still have my old Justice. I have 2 Justice League membership cards, so I'm absolutely going to be begging my retailer. I want all 5 of these cards that they're going to be selling. I mean that's a must for me, and that blank card is going to be filled with my picture. I'm going to be using all my creative abilities. I'm going to look amazing on that blank card. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no doubt. I probably have 1 or 2 Justice League membership cards around here somewhere as well. But yeah, interesting. How is it going to augment powers? Is it going to take powers from somebody else who's not there and supercharge? But the other part is maybe it's going to help some people learn powers, because at the end of Absolute Power, maybe everybody doesn't get their powers back. Maybe everybody doesn't get the right powers back. Again, go listen to our review of Absolute Power so you know what I'm talking about. One of the things that I will mention, Booster Gold does show up. He's a little late. Skeet says, Booster's maturing, like we said, but he's still a character that's going to bring a little bit of humor. And Skeet says, maybe we shouldn't have stopped for those tacos. But as Booster arrives, Mr. Terrific's saying there's a blank card, and we see it there. And he mentions that it's sort of a symbol of them always wanting to include everybody. So new heroes that come around will be there. And then, as Rocky said, retailers will be giving out blank cards as well. But what's interesting is Booster's like, this is the dream. I'm here. I've made it. That's the blank card that I saw in the Hall of Heroes back when I was just a security guard in the future. Why do I still feel lost? Why do I feel like something's wrong? And at that moment, the alarms go off. There's a breach. and it's really cool. Like the electricity and you notice as the page goes down, the lines for the panel get kind of all wonky and wobbly like lightning themselves. And you'll also notice that some of the people, some of the heroes here look like they're possessed and they're speaking, and it's upside down. It's a flip book. Remember, the words are upside down. And they're saying Darkseid is, Darkseid will be. And Wonder Woman is sensing the specter. And yeah, just we're not like this is all of a sudden out of the blue. They're having this meeting, and all of a sudden the shit hits the fan. Really great moment. I didn't know what to think with the different word balloons and people speaking up. I was like, wait, because Zatanna is one of the ones. I'm like, oh yeah, you're used to Zatanna, speaking backwards or whatever. This isn't that. She's talking. It's literally just upside down. It's a flip book. But hey, you're talking. You belong on the other side if you're going to be talking upside down. So yeah, this was really cool. Obviously, we know something to do with Darkseid because that last panel, Darkseid is, which is very, a very familiar term in DC, but then Darkseid will be. So anything to add on about this page, Rocky?
Yeah, well, even the artistic framing of the page, it has sort of like a quasi lightning framing on the panels, which is reminiscent of Spectre in many of his artistic renditions, and it has the dark red, gloomy color of Darkseid, and whenever he uses his whenever he uses either his Omega beams or just in general, in his most famous depictions, Darkseid's always in red. So it's artistically, if you know the Spectre and you know Darkseid, and frankly we're going to be getting into it, what we're going to be seeing on a second read. I have a better appreciation of the artistic framing of these pages because it's actually a foreshadow of what's to come, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and it's the same thing because you need both sides because again, they're sort of parallel stories. So they're happening at the same time. So you get one half perspective and then you get the other half perspective. So yeah, it's definitely really, really fantastic. I mean, I can't wait to get the physical one in my hand so I can read it again physically, which typically I don't do. I get my physical books, I put them in the bag and board, I put them away. But no, I'm going to sit down and read this one for sure. Next up, we just have an ad for Justice League. I'll show it real quick. There you go. Justice League Unlimited, Mark Waid, Dan Mora. And then we get to this page. Oh my God. So not only were the people that were speaking upside down in a way in that weird Darkseid voice doing that, somehow possessed by Darkseid, now we see them firing Omega beams. We got Omega beams coming out of the eyes of Swamp Thing, Dr. Fate, and Zatanna, and Green Lantern Hal Jordan going, Omega beams, like what the heck? And we see all these rips in reality, and we can see Darkseid through the rips. We see Highfather. Like, what the heck is going on? We see a big explosion come out of the boom tube gateway that they built that we saw heroes coming out of before. And Blue Beetle, Ted Kord Blue Beetle's like, that's not good. And Batman is telling everybody to get ready, like what comes next. So, but notice the rips in reality, how they're upside down. But these are scenes from the other side of the book. So it's fantastic. Like, what a fantastic. And this was a lot of work editorially, by the way.
Oh, I've no doubt, and it's one of those things too that all the questions, like, because when you're on a first read through, you look at this page, there's all kinds of questions that I have that are subsequently answered, or at least you can infer an answer. Like, for example, and you said it, how can Omega beams come out of Zatanna's eyes? That's not something I've never seen before. I mean, that's Darkseid. I didn't know Darkseid could really mind control, take over somebody, and then shoot Omega beams from other people's eyes. That he can. This is different. And then all of a sudden, Darkseid at this point isn't actually technically even in the room yet, and all these rifts in reality are occurring. What's going on? And again, it's right away as a reader, and really rewarded as a longtime reader. Already I'm thinking, oh my God, if this is Darkseid, this is a kind of Darkseid we've not seen before. This is far more epic than we've seen him. And he's not even on the page yet. And that's again, it's awesome. It's just awesome. Tickles my fanboy.
Yeah, 100%. Quick ad for Wonder Woman, number 14. Again, Tom Taylor, Daniel Sampere continuing to work on that title. And then look at this, man, when Darkseid shows up. Holy, like that is just... when I was reading the digital and I scanned down into this, I literally out loud I said, "Holy shit!" Like he looks like Daniel Sampere draws an amazing Darkseid. He looks menacing. He looks awesome. And oh wait, what is that axe he's holding? Wait, what? That's not. He's not holding it. His hand ends in an. He only has one hand, and the other hand is an axe.
Yeah.
The Peter David Aquaman who had a harpoon hand. This Darkseid has an axe hand, and he says finally. And obviously everybody they're gonna attack him and try to stop him. Superman right away senses he's bonded with the Spectre. How, why, what's going on? And Hal Jordan's like, oh man, that can't be good. The ruler of Apocalypse. To death itself, now that he's bonded with the Spectre, one of the most powerful beings in the DCU. Two of the most powerful beings in DCU have combined. And Darkseid said, "It's done. Stop resisting me. Tell me the truth. What was that surge I felt?" So he's trying to discover what's going on. Like how, who is he now? What is he? And yeah, this page he just looks fantastic.
And again, from a storytelling point of view, I mean, as the reader, I'm looking at this page, and Darkseid is asking the very same questions I'm asking. Like, really, well, first of all, what happened to your hand? What the hell's going on? How are you bonded with the Spectre? You're talking about a surge you felt, and you're really, really pissed off. And then the comedic side of me is thinking, oh, those poor bastard Justice Leaguers, they just finished building a really nice satellite just to have Darkseid show up, and it's going to be destroyed. But that's what I'm thinking at this time. But anyways, it was just, I mean, this is what is this, on page 6 or 7? And if we're starting at that one end, and just so much excitement and just hit the ground rolling. I mean, after the membership drive, you're on the satellite, everyone's happy, then all of a sudden, boom, this happens. I mean, this is, reader, guys, you got to pick this up. And you made the right choice blocking out all the words so that people watching here are enticed to go and pick up the actual comic.
Yeah, 100%. So on this next page, we see Booster and Skeets. They're having a conversation. Is it time? Oh, look, there's time rips. No, they're actually rips in reality. He talks to Mr. Terrific. How can I help? Terrific's trying to figure it out. He's like, Darkseid's here, but he's not. He's a little out of sync. It's almost like he's two realities, and he's being ripped in half, and I've never seen anything like it. We see that blank card has been corrupted. That'll be the one that you can get from your retailer, hopefully, that has Darkseid on it and it looks different than the rest. It's all black and what have you. So they're continuing to fight. They're trying to understand what's going on. And this is actually a 2-page ad, just talks about All In, shows all the new storylines that are starting. Those are the covers for all the ongoing titles. Some of them that we saw before, some that we didn't. So when we get past that, we see Darkseid saying, hey, if you want to fight, so be it. And then we get Zatanna's perspective here on the Spectre being really powerful, what the lengths Darkseid must have gone through to bond with him. And it looks like Darkseid is using his Omega beams to kind of corrupt that boom tube gateway that he just came through. And they're worried that if he completes the gateway, corrupting that gateway to get to wherever he's trying to go, they don't know what he's trying to do, but they're trying to stop him because it's Darkseid. You don't want him to do what he's probably wants to do. That would be a bad thing. So because of that, like I said, they're trying to stop him, and the bond may not be complete with the Spectre, because Darkseid doesn't quite seem to be able to do everything that he's trying to do. So their thought is, hey, let's get together, the magic users, as he's at the bottom, and try to stop him, try to separate them, try to separate the Spectre and Darkseid. So thoughts on this, Rocky?
I love this. The choreography and again, the whole scene will play out as you'll describe it. But I love the way that this is choreographed, this battle against Darkseid. Darkseid's one person. He's just one person, but he feels like an army. I mean, it's worth noting here that Darkseid doesn't have his parademons with him. He doesn't have. It's just him. He's one lone mega epic force, and here the most powerful sorcerers and magic wielders in the DC universe. Four of them are trying their bloody well best to figure out what the hell's going on. Meanwhile, everyone else is being held at bay. Omega beams everywhere, and this is just on one page. This is just on one page, and. God, man, when it's one of those moments where I look at a comic like this and I'm having so much fun with just one page, and this is why I get so angry when there's past events that are so disappointing. When I look at something like this is how it's done. And I know it sounds like I'm fanboying out here and I'm exaggerating, but I really do feel as excited as I'm sounding right now because my excitement is genuine. I think I'm happy with this, but yeah. Continue.
Yeah, the other thing that's cool, so Wonder Woman lassos Darkseid up, and that like, hey, maybe she's trying to figure out what Darkseid has going on. But what's interesting is Darkseid doesn't fear. He's all of a sudden Darkseid has nothing to hide.
Yeah.
He's like, you lasso me up. You try to figure out what the truth is. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the truth as well. Like having your lasso on me is not going to do anything. And so it looks like Batman also throws a kind of a rope to anchor Darkseid in place. Meanwhile, Zatanna is powering up Superman with some ability to resist magic, because we know that's one of his weaknesses. But she tells him, hey, this is going to protect you from the Spectre. It's not going to protect you from Darkseid's inherent powers. And as Batman and Wonder Woman are anchoring Darkseid, Superman, and it's cool now that he's Darkseid or Superman rather has got this enchantment from Zatanna. He speaks backwards, which is really cool. He's speaking that Zatanna speak, and Batman and Wonder Woman are struggling to hold Darkseid in place. And she says, "Hey, it's now or never, Cal." And he gets in front of Darkseid's Omega beams that he was firing at the gateway to try to corrupt it, and succeeds in stopping Darkseid. So we think, right? Like, again, it's a double page spread. So I'll show you both sides here. And Darkseid apparently disintegrates. And again, I can't wait to see this, like hold it in my hand and see the double page spread physically. But yeah, he disappears. And Power Girl's like, is Darkseid dead? But what's interesting is at the moment where he disappears, he says, "Thank you. Darkseid ends." And you're like, wait, what? We saw in the solicitations, Darkseid supposedly has been killed. Darkseid ends, but from what we know of Darkseid, why the hell would he be happy about being destroyed?
Yeah, and we might get a little bit. There might be a little bit of a clue, because when Wonder Woman had her magic lasso wrapped around him, yeah, Darkseid does indicate that the truth is all he was after, and now that I have found it, it's glorious. So he's found the truth. Darkseid states that he's discovered a truth. Well, what is that truth he discovered, such that he doesn't he's actually thanking them once he dies. So again, just questions here that just, as a reader, it's like, what the heck's going on? So yeah, we do get, of course, some answers on the flip side, but just masterful storytelling, because we're not even done. We haven't even got to the end of this side yet, of this side of the flip book, and already my excitement and more questions that I have, and all the right questions, exciting, so well paced, so well done, and it's just fantastic art by Daniel Sampere, man.
Yeah, just holy shit moments, because it just looks great. Yeah, Darkseid dead. And it leaves behind, he's gone, he's disappeared, but he's left something behind. And one of those rips, not just a rip in time, but a rip in time and space, a rip in reality, remains behind. And Superman says, yeah, it looks like we have our first mission. Where's Darkseid? So they've cleaned up. On the next page, it says later. And we see the card there. It's still corrupted. We see that rip. And yeah, where is Darkseid? He's a huge threat. He looks more powerful than ever. They did seem to succeed from splitting him from the Spectre, but he's gone. Where did he go? you don't want him out there, especially at this new power level. And why is he more powerful? And again, we'll talk about that. And so they contact Orion, and Orion has something interesting to say. He said, yeah, we can't find him. No sign of him back on Apocalypse or whatever. But Darkseid is a constant. Creation needs Darkseid. And if he's gone, the universe is going to create another one. And I've got to return to New Genesis to talk to Highfather. So that's so interesting. And it's something, again, we'll talk about it a lot in our episode, What You Need to Know, for DC All In, because I'm not going to get into it here. Because Darkseid, it's interesting what he was and what he's become through this story. But yeah, really, really interesting what they're doing with Darkseid. And so Batman basically says, hey, let us know what you find out. We have our own lead to follow here. And they're looking at that corrupt membership card, and they said it was the epicenter of his attack. It appears that it's absorbed some of his anti-life energy, and it seems to be a doorway now. It may be a way that we can track him. And Superman's like, yeah, well, if it's become a doorway to what? And this is a reference to the end of Infinite Frontier, no, the end of
Death Metal.
Oh, Death Metal. But also we saw an Infinite Frontier, and it's Earth Omega or the Elseworld. We now know that's going to be the Absolute Universe. But yeah, this is where it looks like this corrupted card that has some of Darkseid's energy, where it leads to. But the problem is not just anybody can go there. And it's also referred to as the Alpha World, which is so confusing, right? So there's so many different Earth designations, and they've changed over time or whatever. But yeah, Elseworld, Earth Omega, Alpha World all means the same thing, as opposed to Prime Earth or Earth Zero, which is the Earth that these heroes are on, the Earth of the main DC continuity. So they talk about the fact that, hey, we can't just go there because, again, things that happened at the end of Absolute Power with the multiverse and whatever really factor in pretty heavily here. So they've got to be they have to be careful about how they go. But they want to go there because they want to find out where Darkseid is. But Batman's like, I kind of advise against that. And Superman says, well, there must be a way. And again, I love that Mr. Terrific plays such a big role. He's like, well, here's the thing, right? Like the multiverse, we don't have access to it anymore. And, each world has its own pattern and its own vibration. But that's sort of constant. Each reality vibrates at a different vibration. That's how the Flashes were able to travel the multiverse, by adjusting the vibration of themselves. But for the Elseworld, the Earth Alpha, Earth Omega, whatever you want to call it, its vibration is chaotic. It doesn't stay constant. So they're worried, hey, we'll go there, but we might not be able to get back. And so what they decide is that somebody that has a lot of tachyon particles from being a time traveler, that might be the answer. They might be able to go there and still come back. And they may be the only ones. And that's really interesting. And I'll stop right there to give you a chance. As this is all being explained, Rocky, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, when I was reading this, I thought, well, couldn't they just send Barry? But I think Barry's situation might be I think the power sets of maybe the Flashes are a little bit wonky after the end of Absolute Power. So, because I would have thought a prime candidate would have been maybe Wally West, because, they've time traveled before. But since Mr. Terrific focused exclusively on tachyon particles as opposed to a connection to a Speed Force, I think that's more of a shoe-in to pull Booster Gold into the story. And quite frankly, I kind of like that. It makes sense to get Booster there, and precisely because of what's going to play out. But also, Booster does have a connection to the future. He knows the future, but he knows the future now is maybe thrown in disarray because of these events. And I think it works quite well. And you said, I agree with you as well as your comments about Mr. Terrific. I like that this feels more like a team effort. It's not just the Trinity talking here. It's this really is a Justice League team effort addressing this crisis threat. I also, or this Darkseid threat. I also I just have to say how epic it is and cool it is that a membership card has absorbed anti-life energy. I mean, is that not cool? How in the hell does a membership card? I mean, that membership card. I mean, how does that even work? But I like it. It's cool. A membership card that actually gets you access to the Elseworlds. That's pretty cool. It's. I mean, only in comic books, but man, yeah, it's. I mean, again, these are just concept after cool concept after cool concept after epic scene, epic moments, and yeah, it's just again just a really great scene.
Yeah, maybe the reason. Okay, so we again listen to our review of Absolute Power 4 for what's going on with Barry's powers. Yeah, maybe you can't do Wally because, like I said, the vibrations don't stay the same. So he would constantly have to be trying to change the vibration of himself to stay there. So maybe that's why Booster. You're right. I forgot to mention it. The future has changed. Skeets has always kind of got a monitor on the future of where he and Booster came from. And he mentioned at the moment when Darkseid attacked, the future changed. And then now Booster can't even go home if he wants. So yeah, when he hears it needs to be a time traveler, again, continuing this idea of Booster stepping up, he says, I'll go, basically, someone like me. And they say, Superman says, hey, it's dangerous. Are you sure? And Booster says, yeah, you said we're better together. This is why I'm here. This is what I was sensing about maybe not belonging. So I'll go and I'll report back. And they only want him to go for a short time. Mr. Terrific sets what he calls a tether on Skeets. And in 10 minutes, it's going to pull him back to Earth Prime here. Eddie says, so don't lose Skeets, and Skeets tongue in cheek, like, you mean you want to make sure that I don't lose Booster. They say, and so Booster says, okay, so mission, spy on another world, find Darkseid, no big deal, got it totally. So he jumps through the rift, which is again just an awesome scene. Like, look at this art from Daniel Sampere again, just fantastic. Looks a little, different and wild and esoteric. And he talks about how it feels so different. It feels new. And he lands there and he goes, okay, I know where we are. Skeets, where are you? Yeah, he has lost that quickly. He's lost his way home. And we get a chance to look. Obviously, he's in Metropolis. We see the Daily Planet building there with a giant Omega symbol, the symbol of Darkseid. Meanwhile, back on Earth, that tether, what are they seeing? What are the Justice League seeing back on the Watchtower? They're seeing error. They're like, oh, crap. We lost contact. The tether didn't work. But Batman says, that's okay. I thought maybe this would happen, that we lose contact. But as long as he has Skeets, he can get home. And Booster's like, okay, I've functioned without Skeets before because apparently he's disappeared. I know where I am. I got to send back a warning. And that's his plan. But the other thing that I'll point out here, because apparently he's now on the Elseworld. He's now on Earth Alpha, Earth Omega. What's interesting about it, that in the skies, you see what looks like parademons flying around. But the other fact that the skies are red, which in DC, denotes crisis time. Yeah. So I have a feeling this is a world that's constantly red skies on the brink. But again, just look at that skyline. It's just fantastic. Like you were saying, Rocky, this book is just chock full of these moments, these just incredible moments, moment after moment that's, I call them holy shit moments because they're just awesome. So anything to add?
Well, I think you said it. I agree. I mean, again, that Omega symbol, you knew right away that if they're on, this world, Darkseid, time is a little bit wonky because if Darkseid just disappeared or he was supposedly killed and they're looking for Darkseid now, and you know that if there's an Omega symbol anywhere, Darkseid ain't far behind. So Orion mentioned it before that under the mythology, our understanding of the DC mythology is that if Darkseid dies, because he's a godlike level, if Darkseid dies, he's going to be reborn again. Just like if the High Father dies, the High Father's reborn. And we see a lot of that at play even in Wonder Woman comics with the Greek gods. Often when the Greek gods die, they're sort of reborn. Zeus, how many times is he born and come back? So on a very basic level, it's not surprising that Darkseid would come back. But there's far more to it here in this expanding DC mythology, of which this DC All In is just getting us up to evolving. It's evolving that DC cosmology in an epic way. And this scene of the Omega symbol in this Omega world, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and we've seen Darkseid killed before. In I think it was Jeff Johns' Justice League, and
It was Final Crisis too. He died.
yeah,
He was
yeah,
killed him.
but he comes back as a baby. He did not come back as a baby this time. Why? There's a reason for that, and it's fucking awesome. It is so awesome why that is the case. So again, like Darkseid, he has become so much more. He already was the big bad, and now he's leveled up. He really is that Galactus level, like Scott Snyder was saying. So anyway, on the next page, we see Booster. Like he said, he found Darkseid. That part of the mission was accomplished, but Omega beams are being fired at him. He has to, kind of try to get away. The Justice League, they're worried. Hey, where's Booster? It's been long enough. He should have, gotten back by now. And then they lose even what little bit of connection they had. And as Booster looks up at Darkseid, he says, mission accomplished. I found Darkseid, but Darkseid's wearing a ring, a Legion flight ring, much like Booster Gold himself has. But this is not. Doesn't look, there's no L. Like usually it's an L and a little star. No, this is an Omega symbol with the star in between. And Booster says, that ring, oh no. And Darkseid says that he's finally got his army. So this is like when you're watching a movie and the music starts ratcheting up and a big moment is coming. That's this page. And it's massively done to build up to we've said there's a lot of holy shit moments, but the best for last. And you guys just wait until you see this next page. Again, I didn't put it together as a double page spread. I probably should have, but man, yeah, building up to something big. Anything to add before we reveal it, Rocky?
No, go ahead and reveal it, my friend.
So Darkseid says he has his army, and it says to be continued across the Absolute Universe. I don't know if you guys can see. Here's the other half of it. He says, not just his army, his legion. His
Boom.
legion. Boom. Exactly. Holy shit. Are you fucking kidding me right now? We just talked about it recently. I was talking about it with other people the other day. I was sorting some comics or whatever. I'm like, man, the Legion has been such a huge part of DC for so long. So many. I got 2 long boxes full of Legion books. They've always been around, and they haven't for the longest time. Not since their New 52 series have ended. Then Bendis tried to do one. It didn't really catch on or whatever. And they haven't been on the page. They haven't been showing up. Here they are. They finally show up, and now they're bad guys. What? And again, so this page is actually by Wes Craig, and we've got these like corrupted Omega Darkseid versions of these Legionnaires, and we'll just go through and identify, and they just look awesome. So we've got starting in the back at the top there, it looks like Shadowlass, and then Starboy. Kind of right below her, and to the right of Starboy is Ultra Boy, and then to the left of Starboy is Saturn Girl. Below Saturn Girl, Timberwolf, who looks just feral and completely insane. To the right of him is Phantom Lass, and to the right of her is Colossal Boy, Jim Allen, just fantastic. If we go to the next page, we see kind of in the forefront there with the scar on his face, we see Lightning Lad. And kind of just above him, very tiny, is Shrinking Violet, because that's her power to be able to shrink. To the right of, behind him, a little bit in the background, to the right of Lightning Lad, we have Element Lad. Now, to the right of him and kind of above, there's 3 people that are really small. I can't tell who they are. I don't know.
There's probably that might be Triplicate Girl.
Oh, you're right. Could be Triplicate Girl, that they're all together. Yeah. And then below and to the left of Lightning Lad is Cosmic Boy. And then below him is Tellus. Now, Tellus usually being in the little tiny vehicle he drives around, but it looks like he has almost like a much larger, like robotic body. Right above his head is Pharaoh Lad. Above Pharaoh Lad, I think they have gender swapped Wildfire. Unless you think that's somebody else, Rocky. That was the one that I had the most trouble identifying. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because it's not a containment suit.
that's exactly right. But she does seem to have a sort of like fire, maybe
Yeah,
fire-based powers. So
yeah. I'm that, and that's the only thing I'm basing it on.
yeah,
Unless actually, now that I think about it, it also could be Sun, a gender swap Sun Boy.
Sunboy. Yeah, that's true
So
too.
it could
Yeah,
be, yeah, one of those two. But then to the right of her, whoever she is Chameleon Boy, who
yeah.
looks much more insect-like and fantastic, whatever. So yeah, this was just, I mean, I had so much fun going through and identifying. I was like, oh yeah, you can tell they're completely different versions and completely evil
Yeah.
and corrupted and whatever. But again, they're recognizable, with the exception of, is it Sunboy, is it Wildfire, whatever. Um,
And what really stands out for me artistically is the Kirby crackle. I
yeah.
attribute it to Jack Kirby. The Kirby crackle is all over here, and you definitely get. You're right about the Galactus feels. It harkens back to the classic issues, those early issues of Fantastic Four, and it's just epic. It really does feel like Silver Age epic, but in modern day, and so much with just all these hero. I love the Legion of Superheroes. The Great Darkness saga is the greatest Legion of Superheroes story, arguably, of all time. It was after the Great Darkness saga, Legion of Superheroes, they never did regain that. They never did regain that popularity, frankly. Hopefully, this will put them back on the stage. I'm excited for this. And man, that Omega symbol, instead of the L, Booster Gold has a Legion flight ring, while Darkseid has obviously I guess an Omega slash Legion flight ring. So yeah, I mean, all these little Easter eggs and these. What's Darkseid's plan here? Oh my God! How is he going to use the Legion? How powerful are they? Oh my God! And to be continued across the DC universe on one page and across the Absolute Universe on the other, and we haven't even got to the flip side yet. So it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the Great Darkness Saga. It is a tie, like Darkseid has a very interesting tie to the Legion. And so again, kudos to these guys for going. I mean, that was like early 80. I think it was 82 or 83 that the Great Darkness Saga came out.
Yeah.
DC just recently re-released it, so you can get your hands on it. Highly recommend.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, they re-released the Great Darkness saga. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
So
sure.
I'm going to close the window so I can scroll all the way down, and we won't spoil anything. So we can start from the other end, um, and then I'll put it back on there. So. Um,
Yeah, so for those listening, and for watching, we know how it ends. It ends with because the two flip books end on the same page in the middle. But the question now is, how did Darkseid get there? And that's the fun part. That's the fun part with these flip books. And just as a quick aside, I don't recall DC ever doing a flip book. This is the first time DC's done something like this. Is that not correct, or am I?
yeah. No, I think I think that's right. I think that's right.
Yeah. So key
So,
collector alert.
yeah. And so I do want to make note that when we start on the dark side, it's 52 days earlier, right? So it does start earlier. It ends at the same point in the middle, like Rocky was just saying, but the alpha side started 52 days after the end of Absolute Power. This one starts at the beginning, it starts at the end of Absolute Power, and that is significant because we see there's like a big explosion in that first panel. Like, what is that? What's going on? And we see Darkseid, an incredible page here. We see him chopping off his hand. We saw him on the other side with a hand that was chopped off. Why is he doing it? What is this big explosion? And Darkseid says basically it started as an idea. The machine took time to build, technology and sacrifice and what have you. It'll work for one being and one being only, who's ever bound to it by blood. And he chops off his hand and he drops it into the machine. And the machine's response is, hey, that was great, basically, but I need more. And in Darkseid, in his depravity, says, oh, the pain feels good, cutting away the old, purging it. And again, the machine saying bonding in progress, but I need more. So what was this big explosion at the beginning? Why did it prompt Darkseid to build this machine? And why is he chopping off pieces of himself and dropping it into it? So right away, you're drawn in with these interesting choices that Darkseid's making, but why? And again, the Wes Craig art just fantastic. So visceral. I'm going to do that a lot. I'm going to scroll the wrong way because I need to. We're all the way at the technically last page, which is the first page, and I'm going to be scrolling up.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I,
what the heck is going on here? Is what
and
I'm immediately thinking.
Yeah, well, and we get some clues on that first page because he says that the machine, he references that he's using element X from the Forge of Worlds, and element X, we last saw element X in it was Death Metal, the World Forger, who is the Anti-Monitor's brother, the siblings, I guess, or I guess the offspring of Perpetua, and so the World Forger was using element X, so this. Element X is arguably from, could it be from the Dark Universe? I'm trying to remember that storyline, but so right away we have references to past stories that Scott Snyder has told in his Justice League run, and you just get a feeling that all this is sort of coming together. That that Darkseid is utilizing every resource at his disposal to build something, and he's using one of the rarest element X in the universe to do it, and he clearly must have gone through great lengths to get it. So what the hell is he building? And so yeah, as a longtime reader, and I read that, I go, oh, what's going on here? So yeah, and again, keep on going.
Yeah, just fantastic. So while he's doing this, Calabac shows up and he's like, "Father, what are you do? Forgive me for intruding, but what are you doing? This is things are going on with he's referencing absolute power. Things are going on. The heroes on Earth are weak. This is your time to lead. We've risen to the challenge. Look, we've got the greatest army ever with." These Caesarians and White Martians, and now's the time. Now's the time to press our advantage. Now's the time to attack. And Grail agrees with him. Says, yeah, now's the time. Now's the moment. The heroes are weak. Let's destroy them once and for all. What do you say? And he says, no. And Calabac's like, wait, what? What the heck is going on? You've built something magnificent. Look at this army. And again, Grail agrees. She's like, yeah, I'm trying to understand what's going on. We've never seen you like this. So, and we as readers are surprised too. Like the heroes are weaker than they've ever been with what Waller's doing. Has she made some agreement with Darkseid? Like, why isn't he ready to attack? Again, building the mystery. A very, very good storytelling. What are your thoughts, Rocky?
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. I mean, Grail's anxious to attack. Calabac's ready to attack. They got their army stronger than it's ever been, while the heroes of the Earth are weaker than they've ever been post absolute power. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. This is not the Darkseid that they know. So it tells us as readers, and especially those of us who know Darkseid and how he thinks, that this is something is going on that even Darkseid's own family members, he clearly hasn't shared what his agenda is, what he's doing with anybody. He's really kept this to himself, this secret or whatever it is that he's building. And so again, it just sort of builds the tension.
Yeah, and it took him time to build a machine or what have you, because we do see on the next page Calabac again saying, Father, have you forgotten who you are? And this is where we start to understand the fundamental change that Darkseid has experienced. He says, when the multiverse got severed, I felt the surge of power. That was that very first panel we saw on this side. A surge of power like nothing I've ever felt before. It's awakened something in me, a hunger to know, to understand. Why am I more powerful than I've ever been before? It's a hunger to know, to understand who I am, what I am, but it's a path I must follow alone, which means I don't have a need for you. I don't have a need for you or Grail or the army or anything. He tells him to go. And Calabac refuses. He says, no, you're our blood. Wherever you lead, we will follow you. If you're searching for something, let us help. And this is, oh man, again, another holy shit moment. And Darkseid's right. Yeah, you can help. You are my blood. You're right. You are my blood, Calabac. Thanks for mentioning it. And Calabac, when he hears Darkseid say that, you can help. He's like, thank you, Father. And Granny Goose calls out, Uxus, no. Because what does he do? Well, we get a little absolute Batman ad first. But he basically grabs Calabac And again, because Calabac is his blood, and we know the machine has already started bonding to Darkseid's blood, his hand wasn't enough. Calabac will be, and he drops him into it. He's basically, again, he's more powerful than ever. He sticks his, Joshua Williamson wanted to be sure to point out this is the son, unlike Orion, who he feels disconnected with, because Orion, although his biological son was raised on New Genesis, Scott Free, his adoptive son, he never had a connection with. But Calabac is the son that he embraces, is the way Snyder and Williamson put it. And he's willing to make this sacrifice. He picks him up, he throws him into the machine. The machine says bonding complete, and now the machine is operational. And hopefully this machine will lead him down the path of understanding. So again, even on this side, we have holy shit moments.
Yeah, and I wasn't expecting I wasn't expecting him to do that to Calabac. That just straight up that was a surprise to me. Awesome to see. And powering up this machine again, I'm thinking, what machine could possibly be created that would require Darkseid's blood? You got Element X, the rarest element in the DC universe that you could only get at the World Forge. And then you got Darkseid's blood, who is arguably the most powerful darker god in the DC universe. This must be a hell of a machine. And as it turns out, as I'm sure as we're going to get to, it actually is. So, but again, we don't know that at the time. At the time, I mean, it's just more tension. It's like more questions. What the hell is Darkseid up to?
Yeah, and they keep it a mystery, even though Darkseid, now that the machine's activated, he has a sense of what he needs to do, but we're not privy to that right away, which is interesting. So he goes to hell. He uses the machine, he transports himself to hell, and we're told he begins his campaign. Remember that this happened 52 days later. This happened or 52 years ago, or in the past, or whatever. It happens, this Darkseid side starts at the end of Absolute Power. With the multiverse, a little spoiler for Absolute Power, with the multiverse being shut off at the end of Absolute Power, being disconnected, then that's what basically causes that surge. Darkseid has a bunch of new power, inspires him to build this machine, and that takes a little bit of time. And now he's going on this campaign. So that's why eventually, even though they don't like the Alpha side, basically the whole story takes place over like maybe an hour, maybe a little longer. You don't know how long it took to get the membership cards out, but it happens relatively in a short period of time. The story on the Darkseid side basically takes 52 days. It takes that long, and they sync up in the middle. So he's on this campaign. He's yelling out, "Where is he? I won't stop until you give him to me." We see Hellspawn there, and she says, "Enough. I'll give you what you want. I'll give you pain. It's Darkseid. He loves pain or whatever. Immeasurable pain for your foes. Just stop this doomed quest." And Darkseid says, not long ago, Blade, it's actually Blade. I think I said Hellspawn. Hellspawn's Wildstorm villain, but Blaze, basically the DC version of Hellspawn. But he says, Blaze, not long ago, I would have taken that. I would even thanked you for that offer, but that's not what I'm after now. Where is he? And as a reader, you're like, who the heck is he talking about? And all Blaze says is, he's not here. Why are you doing this? Why? And he boom tubes away. He's like, he's not here. I'm going to move on. I'm going to keep searching. So, yeah, I mean, he is on a rampage. He calls it a campaign, but this is a rampage to find someone. But who? So you search hell. Whoever he's searching for is not there. Where would you go next? Why not go to heaven, right? So that's where he goes next. Zariel, the fallen angel, who has been re-elevated to angelic status, is kind of the spokesperson for heaven here, and similarly makes an offer to Darkseid to stop this. As again, Darkseid on this rampage, on this campaign, and Zariel offers to give, and this is awful. It's kind of but it shows the sort of the danger that Darkseid is presenting as this threat, because basically Darkseid's wife, who was murdered but was pure of soul, actually is in heaven. And Zariel, in order to try to stop Darkseid, is offering to give, and it's what kind of corrupted Darkseid and sent him down the path of darkness, offering to give this woman back to Darkseid. So how terrible for her, but it's something Darkseid's always wanted. in a way, kind of similar to Mr. Freeze with Nora, right? But Zariel offers that, hey, if you stop this, I'll bend the rules, cease this madness. I'll offer you what truly few people get. I'll offer you peace. I'll give her back to you. I'll give Sully back to you. Um, you play a crucial role in the order of the universe. Seems like a throwaway line, but it's very important. And again, Darkseid's tempted. He says, I'm tempted, but I'm done with illusions. If he is not here, then I'm going to have to continue. So because I read the other side first, I knew who he was searching for, who he bonds with eventually. But I'm curious, Rocky, since you read this side first, did you know who he was searching for?
No, I didn't. To be honest with you, I was just had a shit-eating grin on my face, and I mean, I never actually stopped reading long enough to reflect for 5 minutes to guess. I was just excited. All I knew at the time was I'm thinking, okay, he's neither. I mean, neither the full forces of heaven or hell can stop, can convince. I mean, they're pretty much willing to give Darkseid whatever he wants. Heaven and hell are both willing to give Darkseid whatever he wants, and he's not willing to stop. He still wants to meet this guy. Who does he want to meet? So I never really stopped and reflected about it, but I'm thinking, okay, well, who is this? If I would have guessed, I don't know if I would have guessed the Spectre. I might have guessed maybe the Anti-Monitor, Monitor, or maybe even Perpetua or something. I don't, you know what I mean? I can't say I would have guessed Spectre.
I would not have guessed Spectre. I wouldn't have guessed Perpetua because, he keeps saying he. I might have thought I probably would have thought Anti-Monitor or Over Monitor or World Forger or maybe the Darkest Night, because he has to do with multiverse and that sort of stuff. But I would not have guessed Spectre. So anyway, on the next page, we see he goes to the dark side of the moon. It's where he heads next. He yells out Kala, which is the true name of Eclipso. Again, this makes a lot of sense. Joshua Williamson mentioned it in our interview, how Kala, Eclipso, was the original god of vengeance. So he's sort of a mortal enemy of the Spectre. He resents that the Spectre took his place as the god of vengeance, or the spirit of vengeance, rather, God's wrath. And apparently they have a long time chess game going, Eclipso and Darkseid. So Eclipso's like, oh, are you here to continue our game? And Darkseid says, the time for games is long over. And Eclipso says, okay, make your move. We get a quick interlude here with the Absolute Power or Absolute Superman ad, and we see Darkseid basically kills. I say kills. He defeats Eclipso.
Yeah,
and the way he defeats Eclipso is fantastic. Like, he shoots his Omega beams, and Eclipso's like, I'm stronger. I see it now. You're weak, and he looks like he's got Darkseid on the ropes. But Darkseid has planned this out. It's really fantastic. And Eclipso's, hey, you're going to be locked away in darkness for forever. You're going to be my slave for the next 1,000 years. And Darkseid's like, nah, you're going to be done in the next 15 seconds. And Eclipso's like, what do you mean? Why would I be? And Darkseid says, because that's when the timer on the boom tube is going to go off. We get a quick Absolute Wonder Woman ad, and then we see that the brightest star, he placed the boom tube in the heart of the brightest dog star, and the boom tube explodes, and the light, blasts out, and so this is a star that's a long way away, obviously, because this star faces the dark side of the moon, but because of the boom tube being placed in the heart of the star, it opens up and it transports that explosion as that sun explodes, dog star, and all that light comes through the boom tube and destroys it. And all we see left is his little black diamond there. So just an awesome death. And it's comics, so Eclipso will come back at some point. But what a crazy way to go, and what forethought from Darkseid to do it this way. So awesome. Anything to add, Rocky?
Yeah. Well, the last time we saw any sort of interaction between Darkseid and Eclipso in in sort of a not this significant a way was in Justice League Incarnate, where Darkseid ultimately ended up both Eclipso and Darkseid were members of the Dark Army, but that was really it. Nothing. This is far more exciting, far more epic, and Darkseid is far more kick ass. And yeah, I did not think that Eclipso. I actually feel that elevates Eclipso a little bit. I never saw Eclipso. I've never thought of Eclipso as being Darkseid level to even give Darkseid that much of a threat. But so actually Eclipso held his own pretty good here, especially against a Darkseid who is unwilling to negotiate even with heaven or hell. So, but just another epic, really great moment and strategically well played by Darkseid. He's kicking ass and taking names. Nothing is going to stop Darkseid to find who he's looking for.
Yeah, I've always thought of Eclipso as pretty powerful, but kind of like the Hulk in that, like the Hulk, right? The angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. The more darkness there is for Eclipso, the stronger he gets. So being on the dark side of the moon, what have you, he's definitely leveled up in power. So Darkseid finally has who he wants, right? We know it's the Spectre. He basically opens up the basement or dungeon or whatever you want to call it that he's in, and he goes down there. And he says, finally, I will know the truth because you will tell me, Jim Corrigan, the Spectre. So again, just awesome moment. And as he's about to bond with Darkseid, he hears somebody calling his name, and it's the Quintessence. And they're saying, this is where your quest ends. You need to stop this. We could kill you if we chose, but the Spectre is the wrath of God, and there's no way we can let you bond with it. This was all for nothing. Your whole journey, you've got to stop. And Darkseid says, that's all true. That's all true. I've taken steps to change the rules. I built a machine, a miracle machine. And instead of you stopping me, you're all now going to do what I wish. And, they're freaking out and saying, no, you can't do it. And Darkseid's wish is to bond with the Spectre. And it's because of that bond with the miracle machine that he's able to do the impossible, and the Quintessence is unable to stop him, and he's able to bond with the Spectre. So again, fantastic art, this time from Wes Craig, as we see the Spectre leaving Jim Corrigan and bonding with the Spectre. And Darkseid's like, finally, it's done. Yeah. I will discover the truth. What was that surge that I felt? But again, one thing I will mention, although he's bonded with him, as we saw on the other side, the bonding, it's going to take a while to complete. It's not completely done. And the Spectre, even though they're on their way to being bonded, he's still fighting against that. And so it is going to take time for Darkseid to find the truth, which is why he then goes to the Justice League to try to, use their gateway to get further, complete the bonding and understand everything. So,
and it's worth noting that for those that are maybe readers that don't know this, if you're wondering why, how in the hell does Darkseid know how to build a miracle machine? Where does that come from? Well, at the end of Grant Morrison's Final Crisis, Superman in the future, in a series called Legion of Three Worlds, with the help of the 3 Legion of superhero teams from different timelines, they built, with the help of Brainiac, the Brainiac Fives, helped build a miracle machine. Superman made a wish at the end of at Final Crisis, and he wished everyone a happy ending. Jump forward to Justice League Incarnate, and the Gentry, the Empty Hand and the Gentry attempted to build an Oblivion machine by taking a crack in the universe that Darkseid slammed into the Empty Hand. They attempted to create an Oblivion machine to undo the wish that Superman made with the Miracle Machine. Well, what ends up happening, of course, at the end of Justice League Incarnate is Darkseid gets defeated by the Empty Hand. He joins the Dark Army. Dark Crisis happens. Pariah comes along, and we end up, then Dark Crisis happens, and then at the end of Dark Crisis, Darkseid has these questions here. And so, but Darkseid is aware of something. He knows, like the Quintessence said here, told him, it's impossible. You can't bond with the Spectre. The Spectre is the wrath of God. No living being can do that. So the only way you can do the impossible is if you create a miracle machine in order to do that. Now, Darkseid then, reflecting on his own multiversal past, knows that it can be done, and that's what he manages to do with the element X, and with using his blood and the blood of Kalibak to create a miracle machine, to make a wish, to bond with the Spectre, and that's what brings us here.
Yeah,
Wow.
it shows the level of dedication and the obsession that Darkseid, I have to know, what was that surge? Why do I feel more powerful than ever? Because he's all about power, right? And he wants to make sure probably that he can make it last. And how do I hang on to that power? And how do I get even more powerful? What was that? I gotta know. And yeah, just fantastic. And so by bonding with the Spectre, he does start to learn some of what's going on, and that's what we see going forward that we're going to talk about right now. So we see on the next page, we start to really get an explanation for what's been going on with Darkseid. And what's interesting is, so again, merging with Spectre, but that merging not being complete, and the Spectre kind of fighting against it and trying to explain to Darkseid, you need to do what you're supposed to do. You need to fulfill your role. You have a role in the universe. And in order to show Darkseid what that role is, it's actually the Spectre that takes him to confront the heroes. It's actually the Spectre that moves Darkseid to the new Watchtower to fight against the heroes, to show, hey, remember how fun this is, sort of thing. Like, and Darkseid is like, if you want to fight, so be it. But I'm still going to find what you're hiding from me. And so it's interesting. It's almost like the Spectre is trying to remind Darkseid, hey, this is your role to cause conflict, your role to try to, take control. Remember how many times you've done this. And Darkseid trying to push back to that, saying, it might not just be the Spectre that has answers. It might be some of these heroes as well. But, again, Spectre almost trying to appeal to Darkseid's ego, remind him how many times he's fought these heroes. And, while he may not have achieved ultimate victory, he's had victories. And the Spectre saying, yeah, you're a key player in the universe. Remember what you are. Why are you trying to change? Which I think is interesting, because Darkseid, if we go back and we look at so many different events that have happened over the past couple of years, I mean, we can go back even farther, but certainly over the past couple of years, it's been about elevating Darkseid so many times. But it's like, I guess DC keeps going back to that idea of elevating Darkseid. Maybe they feel like they haven't elevated him enough. I mean, we can look at certainly Darkseid, but even Infinite Frontier. The Infinite Frontier series was a lot about leveling up Darkseid, and then certainly the Dark Crisis. While it was mostly Pariah, it was that idea of Darkseid pursuing the great darkness that is that sort of esoteric, malevolent force. But even like we said earlier, the Great Darkness saga, and going far into the future to try to talk about Darkseid and him wanting to gain power. So it's interesting. What are your thoughts on that, Rocky?
Yeah. Well, I'm more harsh with DC on this. The reason why I think they've done a really good job with this DC All In is because Darkseid has become sort of a one-note wonder. Oh, he's always looking for the anti-life equation. He's always an anti-life equation. It's anti-life equation. He's like, Marsha. Come on, Darkseid. And I felt that through before Dark Crisis, Justice League Incarnate, Infinite Frontier, I mean, his greatest elevation was Final Crisis, but then he was killed. And then when he came back, I think Darkseid was kind of they did not succeed in elevating him. They were failing to elevate him. He wasn't interesting. He was made he seemed to be a minor character of the Dark Army. Dark Crisis did not do a good job of elevating him at all. And quite frankly, I think I was disappointed with Darkseid. In Justice League Incarnate, he fought the Empty Hand and the Gentry that was in Grant Morrison's Multiversity, and he seemed to be sort of like handily defeated and sort of compelled and mind controlled by Pariah to join the Dark Army. And anyways, my point being is DC very brilliantly, and while those stories had some interesting aspects, DC brilliantly has incorporated the up and down nature of Darkseid's relevance in all these stories, because sometimes Darkseid has been a huge epic battle super ultra villain like in Final Crisis, and at other times he's been defeated in some story arcs merely by Superman. He's been up and down. Sometimes he seems to be massively powerful. Sometimes he isn't. And he's sort of it's a little bit wishy-washy. And what I love about this is that we get an explanation in this through the words of the Spectre. We get an explanation for that, why that is the case. And well, you'll get to it in the next few pages, but I think it's excellent what the explanation is, because it explains so much. It's almost like a Jeff Johns level of explaining these inconsistent Darkseid stories, where his power levels, one moment he's a threat and one moment he's less of a threat, then he's more of a threat. And we finally get more of for me, a very satisfying explanation.
So while I agree with you, I will push back a little bit. This idea of elevating Darkseid, I think there's so many creators at DC that feel like Darkseid should be in Scott Snyder's words, this Galactus level villain, right? Like we talked about it earlier. You said Thanos. I'm saying, hey, let's go even beyond Thanos. He's not even a villain at this point. He's like a force of nature. He's like one of the powers of the universe. And again, DC so many times has gone to the well and said, hey, this event, we're going to elevate Darkseid. At the end of it, the heroes might win, but Darkseid's more powerful than ever. But where DC has fallen apart and fallen asleep at the wheel, if you will, is so many of these events we're told, hey, yeah, this event leveled up Darkseid. But we never see that. We never have stories where we actually see him more powerful. They always say, oh, Darkseid did this, Darkseid did that. And at the end of it,
exactly.
Yeah, it seems like the heroes maybe win, but the event will finish with some panel of Darkseid staring off into space, kind of rubbing the chin, I'm more powerful than ever, and my next thing is this, But then it goes back to the same old thing. Like you said, anti-life equation. He doesn't really seem to be more powerful. And as you said, what's fantastic here, what we learn, what the Spectre tells him, we get an explanation for that, like you said, and it's brilliant. So you guys are like, all right, enough talking about it. Tell us what the hell it is. So we do get a quick all-in absolute ad here with the three titles that are starting out with the Trinity. But then we get into this page, again, brilliantly illustrated by Wes Craig, just beautiful. And it talks, again, the Spectre trying to appeal to Darkseid's ego, trying to explain to him how important he is to the multiverse. And he's like, you need to listen to me, Darkseid. Everything has a balance in reality. There's the multiverse and all these layers, and it's complicated, but it's also simple. At its core, it's life, right? The life energies and the dark energies. And if the life energy is embodied by this idea of hope, there's one being more than anybody who sort of personifies that, and that's Superman. And it's about, life and possibility and expansion and all these things that life will do. To quote Jeff Goldblum's character from Jurassic Park, life will find a way. That's Superman. And Darkseid is actually the other half of that, right? I mean, we've been told this all in is so much about Superman energy versus Darkseid energy. So Darkseid, it's about control. It's about wanting to exert control and have things be finite and really hold things back. And it's this, I love this line, and you can miss it if you're not paying attention. The Spectre says, Darkseid, you're the true source wall, right? Like go back to Scott Snyder's Justice League run, the end of Metal, when the source wall was broken, and that went from a DC multiverse to a DC omniverse. And the reason things didn't get as crazy as they possibly could have is because Darkseid still existed. He's actually the source wall. He's actually what holds life back in a way. Like I sort of liken this to cancer. Like what is cancer? Cancer is cells that just divide uncontrollably and create these tumors, right? It's almost life run amok. And so you need something to kind of control that. Darkseid is that control. And again, Spectre trying to appeal to Darkseid's ego, saying you're primal, you're essential, you're important. We need you to fulfill your role. And at the beginning, when life was consolidated, you were very powerful. But as life has expanded, as the multiverse has grown, you've been kind of spread thinner, because you need to be a part of all these different shards in the multiverse. your physical being has been less at times because you have to again spread out to control the entire multiverse, the omniverse, and make sure life doesn't get out of hand. But now with the multiverse closed off, all of a sudden, all of Darkseid's energy is consolidated. And that's why, in the Spectre's words, Darkseid is vibrating with energy, this untapped potential, because it's all singular. That's this explosion that we saw at the very beginning of the Omega side of this issue. And the Spectre says, you just have to be patient. The multiverse is going to return. And, your role is going to, be what it's traditionally been. You're going to spread out. You're going to have control. And again, Spectre trying to appeal to the ego. Look at how important you are, Darkseid. You're going to have your hand in every part of the omniverse. This is your role. It's an honor. And Darkseid's thinking, but what if I don't want that anymore? What if I don't want to be spread thin? What if I want and have my fingers in all the pies? What if I want to just be who I am and make my own decisions and not, have this role? But the Spectre doesn't answer that question that Darkseid asks, because he kind of knows the answer, right? Like that's not allowed. That's not what Darkseid's role is. So, like you said, Rocky, this is such a fantastic in-story meta explanation for why throughout all these different stories where we're told, oh, Darkseid's elevated, that he really has never been elevated. Because as long as the multiverse exists, as long as the omniverse exists, he is spread thin. Like, what a fantastic idea. When I read this, I was like, wow, that's awesome. And again, if you go and read my articles, Williamson and Snyder, they talk about this. About this idea, I think it was Scott specifically, that talks about this idea of why Darkseid is not as powerful as he should be. But yet, in a way, he is. It's just that he is spread so thin. Again, and this is also why he's a singular being in the DC Omniverse, because little parts of this singular Darkseid, parts of his energy, they permeate. Again, going back to that idea, he is the source wall that makes sure that life doesn't expand, too much to where it's cancerous and it harms itself. So, yeah, brilliantly done. What a fantastic idea, right?
And it to me, it elevates. And on the one hand, it's funny because so much of Darkseid has always been about the anti-life. And it's quite clear now that Darkseid, while Darkseid is in essence he always was the embodiment of the anti-life anyway. It's not about the anti-life per se anymore, because he is literally primal force of the multiverse, the omniverse. There is only one Darkseid, period. And it's interesting when you compare that to Superman. Well, there's multiple Supermans, but Superman embodies hope, but there's many different physical aspects, physical iterations of Superman across the multiverse, across the omniverse, and Superman and the Superman energy embodies that hope, and it's spread out across the multiverse, and that's the balance of the life force. But with Darkseid being just one being, one soul that is individuated across the omniverse, that creates the balance to the Superman energy. But with the explosion that cut off the rest of the multiverse, as you said, now with all this, Darkseid is now all of that Darkseid energy is embodied in his one being. That's why he feels that something is off. He feels both powerful, but at the same time, he feels that he's missing something, that the truth has been. He doesn't feel the same anymore, and he doesn't appreciate his significance. And of course, now that he knows, I mean, you can understand why the Spectre, why the Quintessence didn't want to tell Darkseid. If the Quintessence always knew that this secret, it's a good thing they never told Darkseid. It's understandable why, because now that Darkseid knows that, well, Darkseid's not the type of guy to play ball and be nice with the universe and, oh, yes, I'll just be the bad side of the force and in order to create balance and, almost like the quasi-chosen one. No, this is Darkseid. He wants to, I love just to play with the concepts here. He's super evil. Darkseid always wants to create harm and entropy and everything else. And yet he's never really appreciated how much he sort of exists because whether he wants to or not, it's almost like a predestination. There's a role that Darkseid has to play, and he's played it, and he doesn't realize that in a way he's almost been a pawn, and that's why he feels so powerless. All this fighting that he would do for all these adventures, for all these battles against these heroes throughout the entire history of DC continuity and all the crises, and for what? For what? I'm always destined to ultimately lose, and even if I win, it's finite. I lose, and then I'm reborn, and then it's all for naught. And it sort of takes away Darkseid. I think in Darkseid's thinking, he doesn't have any agency anymore. I want to be a force to be reckoned with, and I almost, the evil side of me sympathizes with Darkseid. It's like, damn, you can't control him. How dare you try to control him? And I love this because now Darkseid is saying, screw you. I'm gonna, nobody tells me what my destiny is, what my role is. I'll tell you what my role is. And oh man, it's epic. And this is where Darkseid should be. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show that, you understand why nobody wanted Darkseid to know this, right? Because in a way, he is extremely powerful. And if he has that knowledge that he's literally in every part of the omniverse, he is the source wall, then he's going to try to find a way to manipulate that, to exert more control. Okay, if I'm in every part of the omniverse, I'm going to find a way to, as much as I'm spread thin, I'm going to find a way to get more power. I'm going to find a way to manipulate things and make things, the way that I want them to be. So you can understand why they've kept this a secret. And Darkseid is extremely powerful. But again, you spread that power out, over so much of the omniverse. He does, like you said, he loses that agency. The power is not centralized in him, in his being, where he can make decisions and do what he wants to do. And like I said, have the opportunity to manipulate and exert control. So you can understand why no one wanted him to know this, which makes it that much more consequential that the Spectre tells him this, right? Like they are so worried about what Darkseid will do that they're like, man, our Hail Mary pass, our last ditch effort to try to convince Darkseid is to appeal to his ego. Say, Darkseid, look at how important you are. You will always exist. You will always be the source wall. We need you as that control. Like, don't you want to keep doing this? And to your point, it's Darkseid. He's never going to play ball. So with this knowledge, when he has this knowledge, we see on the next page as he's still fighting the inner battle with the Spectre, which that's a fantastic panel on the bottom there where he's fighting tons of Spectres. But while he's doing that, we're told and fighting the heroes, we're told that he actually looks outside himself. Now that he has this knowledge, he's sort of able to access his entire not lifespan, but possible futures. He sees himself where he is now. He sees all the iterations of what he will be, what he could be, what he will be, like all these different possibilities, all these different threads. And he sees, as Rocky and I have said, these ebbs and flows is the way that he puts it. He sees at times he's more powerful because the multiverse is smaller or closed off or what have you, not all accessible. At other times, he's much less powerful because the multiverse is bursting with life and what have you. But what he decides is what if I don't want to play ball? What if I just don't want to do this? I want to be something more. I want to be able to be in control. That's what it all comes down to, right? Like the Spectre's again appealing to his ego, saying, "Hey, you are the control. You are what keeps life in check." But in a way, it's unconscious control, right? Like it's just his role. He doesn't get to make any decisions. So that's why he allows himself to be defeated, to truly be defeated, not diminished, not just, destroyed in such a way that he's reborn as a little baby or anything like that, but to really, truly be destroyed. And so we see the Spectre ripped away from him at the bottom of this page here. Again, fantastic art from Wes Craig. And as he's destroyed, as he allows himself to be destroyed, he says, "Thank you. Darkseid ends." And this is what is really important. I'm not exactly sure why it's different this time. I speculate maybe it's because he has the knowledge, or maybe it was because he was bonded with the Spectre. But this time, when he's destroyed, his connection to the role that he has always had is also severed. And that is extremely important. And that's what we see on this next page here. He says, I let the specter be torn from me. I open myself up to death. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's that he's not striving to survive, to be reincarnated. And he begins again, but this time he's alone. He's not connected to Earth. He's not connected to the multiverse. He's not connected to the Superman's life energy as, the opposite half of that. He has completely been separated. And the only thing he's actually connected to is the alpha world, the else world, the world that's going to be the absolute universe. And he's going to allow himself to expand and exert control over that world, but in a way that he's never been able to do before, because again, all of his energy, all of his potential, everything he is, everything Darkseid is, everything Darkseid will be or ever could become is all consolidated into one being. The possibilities are really tremendous here.
Yeah, I do have some questions, and you alluded to what those questions are. If Darkseid, obviously he didn't die; he was reborn, and somehow by dying, Darkseid sort of broke. Darkseid somehow. We know that Darkseid can't really die because he's a primal force of the omniverse. So he comes back. Somehow he came back on the Omega world, the Else world. Somehow he's back there, and he's consolidated all the portions of himself. How did he do that exactly? That's not really explained, but all you need to know is there's that fantastic. There's an image. I guess that's on the. I guess that's on the next page, where Darkseid's hand is sort of like shaping that world, because it says Darkseid ends. But how does Darkseid come back exactly? All you need to know is that if he's a primal force, he has to come back because the universe needs that balance. So the balance is there. But unfortunately, if he's consolidated all on one. If he's just consolidated in the Elseworlds, and the Elseworlds, if the same logic of the end of death metal is to be followed, the Elseworld represents the actual center of the universe now, this Elseworld. And with Darkseid now essentially being consolidated, more powerful than ever before, it's interesting. He's going to clearly he has his own agenda for this Elseworld, which will be the absolute universe. But what's his agenda? What is he? Sure, he's going to have his own universe, but he probably has multiversal intentions, not just universal intentions in his own universe. All these questions, and we know that nobody has greater ambition than Darkseid, and it's just. This is the epic nature. I mean, frankly, this puts Galactus to shame, because this is like I say, shit-eating grin on my face. Just a fantastic moment and a fantastic build toward the center of this flip book.
Yeah, I am curious though, is he still I feel like he's not a primal force anymore, because if he was, then he would still be connected. He would still be the source wall, the living embodiment of the source wall.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I can see it both ways. I understand. I know. So I'm a little bit confused myself, because you could convince me that I misread this, or I don't know, because I would think if he's consolidated and is super powerful now, why doesn't he just attack the rest of the universe now? If he's consolidated and has all this power, why restrict himself to the Elseworlds?
Well, that might be his plan eventually, once he builds up his army, as we saw and we'll get to on this half of the book. But the other question I have, again, was it the knowledge that he was this primal force, and so when it's not the universe that is reincarnating him here, because he always needs to be, because he is consolidated. He's never been this consolidated. He's never been as consolidated. His power has never been as consolidated as it is at the moment when he dies here. So maybe he has sort of self-reincarnated rather than the universe reincarnating him as that primal force. So it opens up another couple questions, right? We saw Orion say earlier in the story, there always has to be a dark side. Well, if he's not still, there is a dark side, but if he's not fulfilling his role as the source wall, will the universe create another dark side? Will it give, that role to someone else to
And
take the place because Darkseid's missing. That opens up potential for story as well.
And to build on that, if Darkseid is now the consolidation of the Omega, because that's not spread out, to use that word, if he's consolidated all that Omega energy, we know that there's Superman energy, Alpha energy is the only way to defeat. I mean, will Superman have to consolidate himself to battle Darkseid if he's this strong? Because the Superman energy is spread out amongst the Omniverse. Well, if Darkseid energy is all consolidated, how do you defeat that unless you consolidate all the Superman energy? I mean, this is a question I have. I don't know. How do you fight this? I mean, it seems fairly hopeless for our heroes at this point in time. They need a game plan.
Yeah, well, the other part is if there is not somebody that's reincarnated to take that role of Darkseid to be the control, then do you have to worry that life is going to get cancer? There's nothing to hold life back. Now all of a sudden life explodes too much. It swings the other way. You don't have the balance. So so many potential stories here when we really break it down. So we see Darkseid. We get a chance to see the Trinity here as Darkseid is explaining what he's going to do with this world. He talks about it's a world where heroes face greater odds, and it's kind of the mirror side. Like if in the regular universe, for example, Wonder Woman is raised in paradise. Well, here she's going to be raised in hell. If heroes had all the advantages, and those Batman's on this page, so obviously the advantages of monetary advantages and being rich and being like Gotham's favorite son and what have you. Here he's not that. Here he's not the system. Here he's chaos. Again, everything is flipped on its lid. And then when we see Superman, we talk again about a world filled with hope and Superman embodying that hope. And in this world, in the Darkseid world, in the Elseworld, hope is the underdog. And how will that affect Superman? How will that allow Darkseid to exert control and what have you? So, fascinating potential, as we said. And the other thing that is mentioned here, Darkseid talks about how this world is hidden. It's not easy to get to, and that's what we saw again on the Alpha side with why they had to send Booster Gold and what have you. Because the vibrational frequency is different. The timeline is not complete. Things are still solidifying. But what's most important for Darkseid is it's his. It's his. He gets to make every decision. He's not being subconsciously or unconsciously controlled. And it's a reality where he can become, in his mind, what he always was meant to be, because he does have all his power consolidated. And if he wants to grow 1,000 feet tall, he can. Whatever he wants to do, the sky's the limit, because it's like he is the god of this universe, of this shard of the multiverse. And he does say, to your point earlier, Rocky, when I'm at my full potential, then I'm going to go and return to the other worlds and crush them. So yeah, clearly he has a plan. And to me, this page, specifically by Wes Craig, very Kirby-esque. Very dark in a way, certainly with what Darkseid is planning. But man, what an incredible page.
It is, and you got that Kirby crackle, which is, of course, you have to have that. And that in and of itself is a great tribute to Kirby, Jack Kirby. And the words on the page, and when I am him, I will return for the other world and crush it. A question I have is, if this is Darkseid's world, and it is, it's Darkseid energy, Darkseid universe, it's the Elseworld, it's the Omega planet. Why does he even allow the existence of Superman, Wonder Woman, or Batman, or heroes to begin with on this world if it's Darkseid? So it's almost as if, is this some sort of a sick play? He wants to allow heroes on his planet so that he can take pleasure in crushing them at a later date. Why? I mean, because clearly there is hope in this Elseworlds. So what's fascinating is that despite the fact that this is a world created by an all-consolidated Omega Darkseid, still somehow the universe pushes back because there is still a scintilla of hope. Even on a Darkseid world, we have the Trinity. And that's what's so cool here is that, and it sort of heightens when you think that this entire universe, it's all Darkseid energy. And yet, well, wait a minute, there's just a few droplets of Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman. You got 3 droplets of hope. Is that going to be enough? It's almost as if the universe, like you said before, we're quoting Jurassic Park, their life finds a way. Hope finds a way, even in the greatest darkness. And the greatest darkness here is Darkseid. And it's just a really, really well done.
Is it that? Is it life finding a way, or is it Darkseid overconfident? Is it Darkseid, man, I am consolidated. I've got more agency. I'm going to allow these heroes to exist, albeit in a darker iteration, because it is a world where they're the underdogs, so I can crush them. This is my training ground to go, because, he does say, my voice is going to shake the planets, and it's a reality where Darkseid will be. And that's what he means when he says, when I am him, when he in his mind becomes the Darkseid that will be, that's when he feels like he'll be ready to go and destroy the other world. So yeah, is it a bit of ego that he's allowing this? It's so interesting because when you think about it, and this is also kind of is a great sort of analogy to his role as the source wall, his role as contained. I liken it to like muscles or bones in the human body. Like, how do you get strong bones, or how do our bones develop? Through resistance, right? Like your bones develop because you exert pressure, and so your bones have to be strong to support you. Same thing with muscle mass, right? Like, right? Why do bodybuilders, they're constantly lifting huge weights? It's because that action of resistance, of lifting that weight, of that counter force is what then allows you to grow stronger. So again, Darkseid allowing these heroes to exist so that once he defeats them on his world, he'll feel like he'll become what he should be. He'll fulfill his potential and be able to go and destroy the other worlds.
Exercise. It's exercise.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So again, as each of these stories is mirrored, we see the same page, but this time from the Darkseid perspective, with this Wes Craig art, with Booster going through the portal, seeing the Daily Planet building with the Omega, Skeet's missing, and then saying, "Hey, yes, I see Darkseid, mission accomplished, but that ring." And Darkseid once again saying, "Finally, I have my army, I have my legion." And then we get to that same double page spread. The double page spread's only in there once. So what a fantastic job. We went over this page already with the different members of the Legion. So, wow. Holy cow. Like we said earlier, so many holy shit moments in this series, in this issue rather. It almost feels like a series. There's so much packed in here. But for me, if I have to pick one plot thread, and there's so many great ones, right? Like the elevation I'll say maturation, the maturing of Booster Gold, is because I love Booster, and I feel like he deserves this. He's been the kind of the punchline a lot, and I love that they're going to elevate him. The whole idea of everybody being part of the Justice League, the membership cards and the potential there, Calabac being killed, like so many wonderful moments, so many great plot threads. But for me, the most important thing, my favorite thing about this issue is the explanation for Darkseid, why he's ebbed and flowed, why, despite all the times we're saying, hey, he's more powerful than ever, he hasn't been. That has been the coolest thing. I mean, plenty of other really cool things, Spectre being combined with Darkseid. It's never been done before. But yeah, the explanation for Darkseid, him as like a living source wall, him rejecting that. I mean, this was, you always have hopes, right? You always have hopes because we're such big DC fans. We always have hope. We always have hope that it's going to be a good idea, a good story. It's going to work. And you think back to the great eras of DC, and it all starts with good stories. It's because they have a really good idea and they follow through. And the other part of it is it's because they've had time to plan. We've said it so many times when we feel like DC's floundering is when they're just throwing everything at the wall. We've talked a lot about, many times about how DC New 52 started out so great. Well, that was all the stuff they had planned for years. They had planned. Once things started going so fast that they were having to make decisions on the fly, that's sort of when it fell apart. And we've seen that time and again. Why did Rebirth work so well? Well, because they planned it. We know that, maybe in the last few years, everything hasn't necessarily been planned, but Williamson and Snyder are good writers, and they've planted these seeds. But I think the most important part about DC All In is for 2 years, it's been longer than that. And again, go read the articles and you'll see them talk about that. But specifically for 2 years, they've been writing this book and fleshing it out and getting the ideas and the art and all that. So I think DC really has a good plan. The important thing is not to expand too far too fast. And everybody that I've talked to creator-wise has said that, right? Jason Aaron talked about it in the Superman interview I did with him, Absolute Superman interview. Hey, we got to take our time. Let's not get too excited. Let's have patience. As long as they can do that and editorial allows them to do that, I think they can sustain this momentum and sustain a quality DC with good stories for a long period of time. Fingers crossed.
I agree, and I will add though that I think that I hope they have to have that right balance. You want to talk about balance because just an interesting point here at multiverse at the end of or with multiversity, we had Grant Morrison's multiversal map. It was established that there's only one Darkseid. So there's only one Apocalypse and one New Genesis in the multiverse map. When there was just 52 worlds, when it was a multiverse of 52 worlds, there was only one Darkseid and only one Highfather. There wasn't multiple. So the idea of there only ever being one Darkseid, that's not new. What's new is that his Omega, his energy, and then him being that primal force, and him actually being the source wall. That's what I love about it. I can tell because of all the sort of changing, evolving, slightly inconsistent crisis histories, and that are always every time every 5 years we get a crisis and a new rewriting here and there. You can tell that over the last 2 years that Snyder and company, Williamson, they've done their homework. They've looked at the past stories. They've consolidated everything. And to DC's credit, it just goes to show you that continuity is important. And if you take continuity and you do your best to come up with a great story that incorporates all that continuity, true greatness, true great stories lie in the seeds that have already been planted. And DC has a rich garden in their cosmology. And I love the fact that Snyder and company have looked into that garden. They've nurtured it. They've watered it. And they said, okay, now we're going to grow something a little bit different here, and this is what it is. And I hope they slowly build this. It's an organic build. I love the foundation. There's so much, you said it yourself, there's so much potential there's so many different plot directions they can go with how, you and I can interpret this in slightly different ways. But all of the ways that you interpreted this are still from the same foundation, which is so important because you can maintain that consistency. And DC desperately needs that sort of consistency moving forward because they've kind of been all over the place over the last, 5-6 years. So, yeah, I agree. Just a great way to start off.
Yeah, it's such a fantastic idea. Like, you just want to explore this, right? But according to Joshua Williamson, it's going to be a little bit before we get to that. Booster's going to be gone for a while. Obviously, we want to establish, learn about this absolute world. And those will be the Absolute Universe titles. Again, being careful not to expand too far too fast. But the other thing, it's like at the end of the day, it's a business, right? So I don't think DC, and again, this is the impression I got when I spoke to Joshua. It's not like they're going to come out with some, event anytime soon that dives into this and kind of explains it. So it's like this double page spread where we see to be continued across the Absolute Universe, right? And across the DC mainline. It's not like we can point you to some place where you say, okay, if you want to keep learning about this and learning about Darkseid, whatever, go read this title or go read that title. It's almost like they're saying, well, you got to read everything. Yeah, I'm going to keep reading everything, but that's expensive. Not everybody has the opportunity to do that. But be sure you're tuning into our DC Spotlights every week over on Rocky's channel. So hey, what should I be reading? Where's the story going to play out? So
I want to say my favorite favorite part of the comic is seeing the Legion of Superheroes. Of course, they're the Legion of they're Darkseid's Dark Army now, or Legion, his Legion. I got so many questions. What are the origins of this Dark Legion that Darkseid has? Is it from the 31st century in the Absolute on the Omega world? Is this the future DC? What are these? What's the origins of this Legion of Darkseid, or whatever you want to call it? I just got so many questions. I'm loving it. I'm just absolutely loving it. And the use of Booster Gold, and oh man, it's just, and I'm already looking forward to the McFarlane action figures that are going to be made from this.
I considered choosing the Legion, but man, I just love them as heroes, seeing them as villains. It's cool. It's a different iteration, but part of me is like, oh no, not the Legion can't be bad. I mean, it's right there in the name, the Legion of Superheroes. You can't call them Legion of Supervillains either, because we already have one of those. So yeah, that's it. But it's going to be a cool idea. We'll see how it all plays out. So don't forget, everybody, if some of the ideas and events and what have you that we talked about here don't seem familiar, or this just seems overwhelming, go check out the 10 Things You Need to Know about All In episode that we did. It'll have information about, things that maybe you want to know, or give you places to go and look, so you can kind of educate yourself if you want to know more about this. So that's going to do it for this episode. Again, we appreciate you all joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to Rocky's channel. I just mentioned it. Comic Space Boom ! Over on YouTube, where we do our DC Spotlights every week. Obviously, if you're checking this out on YouTube, I would appreciate if you subscribe to the Comic Source channel. Give this video a like, leave comments, let us know what you thought of All In. We really like to get into those conversations in the comment section. Also, if you prefer to listen audio only, while you're driving or while you're at work or on the subway or whatever, exercising, you can find the Comic Source on whatever your favorite podcasting app or platform is. Just do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. We appreciate the support. Thanks for joining us as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.